Greetings and welcome back to room 303 and our St. Martin's Guides lectures. This is number 15. This is our final lecture. And we'll be working now with the pages at the very conclusion of the 12th short edition. Notice that they got that little blue line across the top, a guide to editing and to proofreading. Now, here, of course, we have to say this out loud, and this is a review summary of some of the things that we have said elsewhere at learnstrong.net. Most of us as writers struggle, of course, with the very fact that when we finish writing, we just want to hit the print key or the submit key to turn it in and just to be done with it. Really, in some ways, the biggest differentiation mark between an immature writer within the academic community and a mature writer is the willingness to do what we in 303, of course, refer to as multiple sweeps of a paper. By sweeps here we mean reading through, looking for certain kinds of things. Now, of course, we've used that upside down pyramid as an example, as kind of a mnemonic of what we mean when we talk about this approach to editing, where at the very top in our first sweep, all we do is to look at thesis and primary points of validation. That is to say, do we understand the prompt well enough that we are actually addressing the assigned prompt, whatever it is. And then in our second sweep of the paper, we begin to look at issues of validation, internal as well as external validation, to make sure that we're doing that appropriately. And then finally, in our third sweep, do we begin to look more closely at issues of conventions, mechanics, grammar, syntax, word choice, spelling, proofreading, in other words. Now, what Axelrod and Cooper have done, and it's one more reason we love this volume, is that they have put together at the end of this volume the 12 major mistake areas. In other words, if you can address these 12 in your writing, there's a real good chance that you will not be scored harshly by your instructors for problems with syntax grammar. We're going to go through them quickly. I hope that you have your book in front of you. I'm not going to work through the exemplars simply because they're there provided. But let's at least talk about the error and the identification of the error and the quick fix that maybe's provided, all right? We always begin with sentence fragments because that is one of the easiest ways for us to lose points with an instructor. That is to say, a word group that looks like a sentence but lacks a subject, a verb, or both, or a dependent clause that looks like a sentence. As we have said in other lectures, and you can go back and see these at learnstrong.net, we have given a number of lectures. In fact, we've given a whole series of grammar instructional lectures for the ACT prep, as well as elsewhere. We always say that in our formal written English language, we have some theme, a subject, doing something, a verb or a predicate. You got to have both, right? And then, of course, in the fix-it, you got to determine what's missing, the subject, the verb, or both, and then obviously add the missing part. Number 2, the fused or the run-on sentence. 2 independent clauses, that is to say 2 sentences, that are joined with no punctuation or conjunctions, right? That is to say, the Warriors played hard, they won. This, of course, is a problem. You've got to identify it. We have no issues when we speak. This is when we're writing the run-on sentence, the joining of 2 independent clauses together with no punctuation of any kind. And again, you can just simply do a sweep and look for independent clauses, full sentences, and identify when you join 2 together without any punctuation. Of course, number 3, the biggest problem with fixing these run-on sentences is that often students will just put only a comma there. And of course, that takes us to our third problem, the comma splice, when we join 2 independent clauses together with only, and that's the key for your notes, only a comma, right? We have different ways, obviously, of fixing this, namely 3 of them. We can turn it into 2 different sentences. We can use the semicolon, or of course we can use the comma and then the coordinating conjunction, right? The Warriors played hard, comma, and they won. The Warriors played hard, semicolon, they won. The Warriors played hard, period, new sentence, they won. Number 4, a huge problem with pronoun references, as we've talked about in other lectures, the pronoun, the fuzzy thing, right? When we start referencing the antecedent and it's not, and it's not clear. A pronoun that does not refer clearly to one specific antecedent. And then, of course, the note, the gender-neutral pronouns like they and their are less cumbersome than he or she or he, she. And we're going to replace a vague pronoun with a clear noun or with a noun phrase, and we're going to make sure that we add a missing antecedent or we clarify an ambiguous antecedent. Number 5, pronoun agreement error, a pronoun that does not agree with its antecedent in number, person, or gender. We've got to change either the pronoun or the antecedent to ensure that the pronoun and the antecedent agree in person, number, and gender, right? So, for example, a student can plan their schedule online. The only problem is that, of course, there is plural, student is singular. Number 6, subject-verb agreement error. This is a huge one for college writers. A subject and verb do not agree in person, number, or both. Obviously, to fix it, when the subject and the verb are separated by the words, we want to identify the subject and make the verb agree with it, right? So we would make sure that we would fix stars normally hidden by the sun, was visible during the eclipse, to were visible during the eclipse. Number 7, subject-verb agreement error, where we have a subject and a verb that do not agree in person, number, or both. We're going to use a singular verb when the subject is a collective noun. The team often travel to out-of-town games will be changed to the team often travels, right? We're going to make the verb agree with the antecedent of a relative pronoun. The office is staffed by 2 people. Who runs it calmly should be running calmly and efficiently. All right? And then, of course, we're going to make the verb agree with the subject, not a subject complement. That is to say, our special dinner were burgers and fries is our special dinner was burgers and fries, is the subject complement of burgers and fries. Finally, to finish, number 8, misplaced or dangling modifiers, a problem often that can be easily identified once you know what you're looking for. A modifier too far from the word it modifies and therefore is misplaced, or it does not modify any word or phrase in the sentence, and we call that a dangling modifier, right? We're going to move the misplaced modifier closer to the word it modifies. In the example, the broken vacuum cleaner infuriated my father, spewing clouds of dust and dog hair. Obviously, we're going to say spewing clouds of dust and dog hair, comma, the broken vacuum cleaner infuriated my father. If the modifier dangles, we're going to rewrite the sentence to include the words being modified. And again, you can see the example right there. Number 9 takes us to, of course, the classic volume that we love to study in room 303, Strunk and White. That's that famous rule, avoid needless words. This is wordiness. Words or phrases that do not add meaning to the writing. We just simply want to eliminate them as we work through our sweep here. Eliminating repetitive or unnecessary words, replacing wordy phrases with brief, clear language, and we want to rewrite to simplify sentence structures. One of the reasons why we proofread each other's stuff, no question. Number 10, the use of the incorrect word here, a word or expression that is misused, overused, non-standard for the context. There's a huge difference between texting, emailing your pals, and writing a paper for a university prof, right? Obviously, we're going to use our dictionary, we're going to use our online stuff, we're going to avoid and replace cliches with fresher expressions, and we're going to revise figures of speech that don't make sense. Number 11, inappropriate tone. Writing that uses the wrong level of formality or that contains biased or pretentious language. We're going to revise writing that's too informal or too formal for the context. We're going to replace biased language with more inclusive language. We're going to replace pretentious language with more straightforward words. And then finally, the parallelism error, items in a pair or series that are not parallel in form. We want to use parallel forms for items in a series. We want to use parallel form for items in a comparison using then or as. And obviously, we want to use parallel form for items joined by correlative conjunctions. And again, the exemplars are all there for you. In fact, it's the very last page of the 12th short edition so that you can always be referring back. And I do really recommend that as you be doing your sweeps of your papers as you edit, both yourself as well as having other people edit for you, and as you edit other people's work, go through these 12 different ones and make sure that you feel comfortable with each one. If you have questions, Obviously, you can work with some of my online lectures at learnstrong.net in more detail to feel more confident. Well, there you go, St. Martin's Guide to Writing. I hope that the text has helped you to become a more mature writer. Thank you.